Hello YouTube, this is Omid here with another Wargame European Escalation commentary. This map is a bridge too far, and I'm bringing you a decent game, I thought, with a lot of macro management of the army, so I thought this would be a good one to talk about. So as you can see, bridge too far, it's a very linear map, if you take it one way, but obviously the way your spawns are positioned, it isn't that linear, it's very wide. It's a very interesting map. The center area is actually the least important. There's these two sort of side clusters that you want to focus on, because these are where the big 4 and 5 point zones are. So the match has started. So this is me here. I'm using my new default set out of the BRDMs, T62s, PT71s, Tunguskas, Mi9 recon helicopters. So my plan was, right from the start, get Charlie, okay, high point zone, we want this secured, then secure Foxtrot because otherwise we'd have to reinforce from November, too far away for my liking, and then push them hard. My thought was, two of us were concentrating in this area, me and Roth, almost certainly pronouncing that wrong, and we were focusing on the right side of the map a lot more than the left. As you can see, we actually didn't have anything on the left. And so basically our plan was to sort of deny this area to them. So I had the T62s, Tunguskas, and all that kind of force to be the main source of defense, whereas on the side I had a purely defensive force of these Schulstrom anti-tank weapons, the tank destroyers. They've got a lot of 80 km Cockins, high damage, but that's all they've got. They're just missile carriers with some prototype recon and some Tunguskas. As you can see, the NATO spread out quite far. They've got these anti-aircraft helicopters and 80 km helicopters, probably to defend against any infantry trying to be popped down here. As you can see, they've put their VAB PC down, neutralizing Charlie, but they have not put anything to defend it. All of their force has gone to Bravo, and they don't even have a CV at Bravo. I wasn't really sure of their plan here. NATO's definitely concentrated a lot more on this front, but the forces in the woods have hampered them down, and they're just running unopposed at the left side of the map, and they've got a lot of forces here that really are needed on the right side, but there you go, it's a bad position, I suppose. So we're advancing cautiously, obviously, because it's not often you see a lone command unit just on its own in the middle of a 5 point zone, but still, it happens. A volley of 80 games, first command in the ground. So over here they popped down a sneaky Delta force here, probably to try and ambush anything that we try and do to cut off Bravo. But the thing is, there really isn't a need for it. They don't have any command vehicles in Bravo at the moment. Up here, some tank destroyers are here. They've got some artillery, 2 MLRS batteries, quite powerful. It's done a bit of advantage. Apache advances, but Tunguskas, it's not going anywhere. Weasel support vehicles, quite nasty against most units, especially my tanks, because remember, these T62s aren't that well armoured. A slight offence here, got some empty Sachersons, but the Schulstroms whack them one by one. Tunguskas here are also taking a few key shots at the helicopters that they're evacing from the area. Another here, Tunguska moves into position. Side fighting, no one's really focused on that, but there you go. Elsewhere here, they seem to be concentrating on our artillery and anti-aircraft positions here. T62s firing their ATKMs. DCTM ones, I remember, very good tanks. They've got an excellent ATKM for a tank of its price. So let's see. So they've brought in a command helicopter for Bravo. Now they can reinforce directly into it, but they've been more or less surrounded. All they have are some Rolands and Flak Panzer AA systems and some artillery. This artillery is looking very vulnerable. I mean, you know, the Rolands just can't defend themselves, and that artillery is going to die pretty quickly, it seems. Meanwhile, I'm repositioning over here. My ally's got some TD BVs. These are pretty advanced tanks. And Bertino knocks out their tank destroyers. That's another thing. It's not often you see the Bertino on the field just because of its extreme limitations, you know, per narrow field of sight, all that kind of stuff. But just so it can just wipe out anything. Up here, the MRS batteries have been wiped out, and all that remains in Alpha is some flak panzers. Reinforcements are being brought in the form of starships. These are quite decent NATO tanks. They've got the ATGMs, which are always useful. Let's see, left side. NATO isn't really advancing that fast. I think they just didn't really believe that we would have so few forces on this side, but you know, they're advancing quite cautiously, and they haven't taken advantage of these zones. Oscar, Juliet, and Lima are all uncaptured, whereas we've taken Echo and Charlie. T-62s clearly get shot out the command helicopter on this side. Even if they took off before they could kill it, the Tunguskas are there. That's a pretty dead helicopter. T-62s are firing on the Starship. Remember, these guys have got a much better ATKM than the Starship. Gazelle Hot helicopter could be dangerous if we didn't have the Tunguskas, but we do, so yeah. Supplies are beginning to be an issue now. My first lot have run out. So Rafa's still got some for his T-80s and T-72Bs. I think these are the advanced version. The T-72 is quite expensive, so it has a pretty high quality tank force here. But look at this, just all these ATGMs and even a Bertino fire, probably overkill with what they have at the moment. They really don't have much left. We should really be focusing here. A group of Jaeger are pouncing on the command vehicle. It was probably a Mike, and they've cased it down. I don't think the motor shot will be able to hold off. There's a lot of vehicles and Jaeger infantry. I'm not really sure about why the Jaeger are individual. I guess that allows for micromanagement, but I think it affects their morale if they're in individual units. Elsewhere here, a force of Leopards, 1A4s and 2A4s. Now that's a pretty advanced fighting force. T-64Bs, there's a lot of heavy tanks in this. Normally you don't see these kind of high quality tanks in Wargame because of how usually they're queued up by even the most basic ATGM. Soldiers from us have just been pounced on them. If they get the rockets out, which they just did, that's a huge loss for us. As it stands, NATO has definitely got the disadvantage here. 371 to 25262. I'm bringing in some reinforcements. I brought in some T-72s for some keep meat, and from the looks of it, Bravo is secured for us. Just one Huey left. Here. And there it goes. Delta Force still in the woods, but I don't think we spotted them. Infantry in woods are notoriously difficult to notice. Offensive here is going quite well for us. Motor Strelke have been abandoned, or well, either abandoned or fought off the Jaeger. I mean, all of them are routing, but the command vehicle is nowhere to be seen. Actually, that could have been it. Elsewhere, huge force of Leopard 1A4s and 1A5s. The C-72s are just completely outclassed. But their thick armour is sort of helping distract the tanks from the BRDM. But micromanagement here is where you need it. You need these Leopards to be firing at that command vehicle. Remember, the BRDM is a fast unit. It can get away quite quickly. And it's got away without a scratch on it. More infantry advancing. T-72 still survived, and it's still got its ATKM, so it's still a threat. But now these Mott-Houston, the Mott-Houston are now threatening. It's anyone's game here, I guess. Pact still has a good advantage, but the thing is that it's sort of like Pact has steamrolled NATO on this side of the map and has secured quite a few high point zones, although it looks like we lost Echo. I'm guessing there was some kind of offensive going on here. See, that's in NATO has all these units, but they haven't taken advantage of this side of the map yet. But it seems that they've gone wise. They're surrounded by command vehicles. This is what NATO needs to do. They need to secure Oscar, Lima, Juliet, reinforce at Quebec, they could steamroll our little position in November and secure the middle of the map quite easily. I mean, they already have the map in their hands, but we have a lot of forces here. You see, once I knew that Bravo was secured, I'm taking all of my forces and bringing them into the middle of the map. As you can see, we've been pushed back all the way to November, although we did get one command vehicle out, did we? Don't see it. Oh yeah, there it is, hiding under November. Yeah, we got 2 command vehicles in November. A bit of a waste, but considering the fact that we have several other zones that we could be capturing now, but there you go. Black Panzers are attempting to retreat from Alpha. It's a lost cause, and we're using the NATO FOBs that were the part of the MLRS, and I'm bringing in more command armor to secure Bravo. Still got some Delta Force here, so could be interesting. And there we go. Echo has been resecured. I'm guessing we only moved the command vehicle out rather than losing it altogether. T-72Bs still alive and kicking. They're probably regarding that now, although I don't know why he's on the move. This has got an ATKM. This Severe, probably pronouncing that wrong. You know, it's got an ATKM. Packed, you know, we should really be using that advantage. More artillery shelly, but now you see, now we've got a pretty powerful force. We've got 4 ISO Jeeps, fully vetted, so these guys are going to be deadly accurate, well supplied. MBT-70 prototype tanks with the ATKM. They're like a all-around better version of the Starship, but all-around more expensive. Now the C-72 is using its ATKM to its full advantage. It doesn't have much ammunition, so it won't be able to do that much. Havoc here, deadly, but those chaparrals, are those vetted? No, they're not. Okay, no threat from the chaparrals. Now over here, Delta Force. Basically what happened was I brought in some reinforcement points at Bravo. You know, I tried to reinforce units at Bravo, and they got ambushed by the Delta Force. So now we know Bravo is a dummy zone. Now here's the thing, okay? When you've got someone like this who's cutting off your reinforcement zones, you have to get rid of them as soon as possible. If you don't, you know, one misclick of reinforcement, you know, it's very easy to forget about someone, you know, hitting your reinforcement zone. If you don't deal with it, you're going to lose a ton of units to these guys. Even if it's a negative, you know, kill to casualty ratio taking them out, it's going to be more beneficial than otherwise. So here we go, I'm bringing the Spetsnaz, no joking around, best anti-infantry in the game. Recon capability to spot the Delta Force for the T-55s. PT-85 just in case Spetsnaz aren't good enough. 6 Spetsnaz, 6 BTRs, 1 Delta Force down, 1 BTR. That's usually the best way to deal with it. Massively overspend on what you're facing, because when you overspend like that, it gets, you know, even though you've spent a lot more than what you would need to when you think about it, it prevents losses. Over here, MBT-70 is being used very poorly. I mean, they haven't shot a single ATKM out of there, and they're being rushed straight into this guy. This is not a good way to manage them. Jagger being rushed at some more anti-aircraft artillery. Not that wise, really. BMP is also being rushed in. Again, I don't know why they're there. Use the ATKMs to your advantage. Don't really know what's going on. Up here, we got the forces of Leopards resupplying. My 9 reconnaissance helicopter was brought in because, you see, I've got my forces repositioned, and you know, we're ready now to retake and secure Delta. We can secure Alpha to get the points advantage. NATO's only secured 5-point Oscar. We still have Guardians and whatever this is called, Echo. You know, we're getting more points in at the moment, but they've pushed us back quite hard. They've gone for a very aggressive pushing strategy. MBT-70 in the woods, just don't do that. It's an expensive tank. I mean, yeah, it can kill BMPs quite fast, but they can probably kill us quite fast. They're motor stralky, you know. No, those Jagger are down. Those motor stralky just outnumber them far too much. But yeah, look, you know, NATO's pushed us all the way back to November, but the thing is, it doesn't matter. We've still got this huge chunk of the map. Unless they take advantage of the map that they've secured, you know, it's not going to be doing any favors.